Hi, welcome to MTG. I am Ashley, and today we're here to waste our wild cards on meme decks so you don't have to. And oh my goodness, I thought this might be a fun experiment for a deck. So for those of you who don't know, if you are looking at Brawl, they have a section with some example decks. So they're kind of starter decks. And to me, it felt like when you're looking at a pre-con, and the pre-cons, give you pretty much a rough idea of like what you want to do when you're playing commander and what the archetype of the deck looks like and really what the commander wants to do overall. But there's always stuff you can do to like improve the deck, whether that's changing the land base or adding in cards that have a bit better efficiency when it comes to removal or card draw or anything like that. So I thought it'd be fun to do something similar with how people do like pre-con upgrade videos. If we look at one of these example decks and try to see, what we can do to improve them so that if you are new to Brawl and you're looking at these example decks, that you can have an idea of maybe what they're missing in order to help keep up with people who are playing the really powerful commanders in Arena, and also just for you to learn as well with just the archetype overall of what we're looking at. And if you're a senior player, this is all familiar to you, I hope this video is interesting to watch still, because maybe you can add knowledge in the comments below of what you think this deck needs, or what are some cool upgrades, or even just lessons learned for yourself when you've been playing Brawl. Because I think one thing that's really fun about the Magic community is how willing everyone is to just share their knowledge, especially when there's newer players entering the field. So with no further ado, I'm going to jump into the deck tech, and then at the end of the video, I was going to put in some recommendations for upgrades based on what it felt like when I was playing. So I hope everyone finds this video informative, and let's just go check out the deck. I'll see you in a second. Before we get started with the gameplay, just want to say thank you so much to our channel members and Patreons. Saproline list is heckin' growing over here, so thank you all for your support. Treefolk level, thank you Frosty K, I smell death on you, and thanks Hi I'm Rory. Appreciate all of your support. Hi friends, I thought it'd be fun today to take a look at one of the Brawl example decks that Arena provides for you. So if you're interested in historic Brawl and you're not really know in exactly how to get started or how to build decks and stuff like that, typically you can look at these example decks and maybe it'll give you an idea of how to go about building with, this kind of format. So if you are new to Brawl, a lot of people like to compare it to Commander, and while it looks a lot like Commander because it's a singleton format, it is quite different because you're in a 1v1 scenario, so you're going to be pressured to run a little bit more removal and maybe a bit more what would be considered mean spells compared to like casual Commander, because again, we are in a 1v1 format and there's not really power level discussions at all, so you have to be a bit more equipped to deal with high level problems where someone's probably just going to pop off and win the game. So taking a look at this commander here, which is Judith the Scourge Dive, they're 3 CMC, so they're a low cost creature, and then other creatures you control get +1/+0, which is good because we can turn our little squishy sack fodder pieces into things that can help bonk face and deal damage. And then whenever a non-token creature you control dies, this commander deals 1 damage to any target. Now preferably with this kind of what's called aristocrat archetype, you want to try to deal the damage to the face, or if you have other shenanigans, that's always fun, like giving this death touch and all these other kinds of things. So we can get into that later in the upgrade section, because I do want to do a, I'll say budget friendly upgrade for this pre-con essentially at the end of the video. So if you want to know if you're interested in this commander or this deck, what are some ways to help make it better, I'll go over that at the end of this video. So not here, but I'll just go over what this deck does. Anyways, continuing back in. From what I noticed when I was playing with this deck is, again, we're playing kind of like an aristocrat archetype. So that means you're going to want to have sack outlets, and sack outlets mean you sacrifice your creature, and typically you get some sort of benefit when they die, whether that's dealing more damage, getting treasure tokens, something along those lines that can help you gain advantage against your opponents and possibly win the game, because if they board wipe, Blood Artist triggers go off, you're dealing 1 damage to their face, in combination with your commanders out as well, that's really good. That's a good way to close out the game. So looking at what this deck does, there's not really a lot of instant speed sack outlets, let alone just sack outlets themselves. We have some stuff like Deadly Dispute and those kind of things, which are nice, but I like things like Yeheni, which I'll show at the end of the video, where at instant speed we can sacrifice something, because if we are not having like mana up or other things like that and someone's going to try to exile our creature, if our creature's exiled, we're not getting the benefit from that. And there's some other things here, like we don't have the best removal package. A lot of it's sorcery speed, which makes it hard to deal with threats that are presenting themselves right away, like Atraxa. You don't want Atraxa to go to end step because then things are going to proliferate, and that's bad news for you. So there's just some things with the interaction and specifically how this archetype wants to work overall that I would definitely change. But again, I'll bring that up at the end of the video. So without me making this part too long, I'm just going to jump into the gameplay and I will see you out there. Oh, Prosper. This will be interesting. Probably getting our patootie kicked. Let's keep, out of curiosity, see what we get. See what the world holds. I was gonna say we don't have our other swampy source, but we actually do with this arcane signet. I was a little worried for a second. Still putting in the arcane signet. Just because ramp life, you know. Phyrexian Arena seems good for card advantage. Put in the Guildsworn Prowler. And I think we got stuff going for us. Okay, so drawing a card. And we will have a way to deal with the Prosper. Guardian Idol. Okay. They haven't hit a red source yet. This doesn't tap, right? Huh. Well, maybe that'll be our saving grace here. If they blow up the Guildsworn Prowler, that's not an issue because we'll draw a card and then we can also just do the fake your own death thing for it. Okay. Ooh, card advantage is nice. That's sack fodder stuff. I think let's just see what we get with Judith right now. And then if they do blow them up, we have some protection here as long as it's not like an exile effect. We'll go ahead and bonk. And I like that Judith gives like a nice little anthem effect, so it turns this little sack fodder squishies to have like, a little bit more bonk power, especially if we're making a lot of tokens, we could potentially go wide. And there are some flyers in here which have been relevant in like the test games that I've done. Okay, so they have their red source. I will say what would be nice about this deck is to have like more artifact removal. The first game I played, I was still able to win just because I got lucky with having flyers, but basically it was the artifact that prevents like 1 damage and then taxes you if you target someone with like an ability. So it was really hard because Judith's damage, Blood Artist damage, was just automatically negated. So it's like being able to have more utility in that regard would have been really helpful. Okay, so we can cast this at instant speed. I'm thinking we just keep the pressure on here, and I'll go ahead and pass. And again, now that they have the key to the archive, they're going to be able to put Prosper in, and hopefully they don't have the protection. Okay, so we'll do feign your own death here, and I'm hoping they don't have more interaction on top of that, but this will allow Judith to come back. Okay, so Braid's kind of what I was thinking that would be real nice. So we'll end up drawing 3 cards no matter what with Guildsworn, but I kind of like the idea of Judith. Is this other creatures? Yeah, so I'm gonna just sacrifice them now so we still get the Judith trigger. Okay, it's not the greatest land. I would have liked to not have that land. I would rather have an untapped land, like a basic. We'll go ahead and throw damage there. Okay. And we have Blood Artist, which will be pretty big. Nightclubber's a fun card as well. We'll say Swamp. Yeah, that Thriving Bluff is not my favorite. Okay. So we have a few options that we can roll with here. They're probably going to put Prosper in next. So let's go ahead. Let's do Big Score just to get some more treasure. Draw more cards. Cold Steel is a tapped mana source, so I feel comfortable pitching that. Okay. Ooh, Feed the Swarm. They do have their red source now, so I'm not sure how helpful that's going to be. But I'm just going to put in Night Clubber right now. And it's not getting the minus effect, but it wasn't going to do anything to Prosper anyways. And we have, like, you know, this here to help us with complicated creatures. The Feed the Swarm I'd like to save. Okay. I'm mostly looking for something here if Prosper hits that we're gonna just, you know, do the old hit with the removal, you know? You know? Ooh, Goldspan's quite good. So they're still gonna be able to cast Prosper here. Yeah. I wish this wasn't sorcery speed. Both of my removal pieces are sorcery speed, which I really don't like either. And I don't know what level of, like, board wipes they have in this precon. Okay, let's do Junji. And let's get this here. So now we have a blocker. Got rid of Prosper, because Prosper creates too much value. They'll be able to recast them, no problem. And we don't have enough for casting that removal spell. Ooh, Tybalt's good. It's Exile, I think. Yeah, rough. Okay. That's real rough. They definitely have the better removal package than we do, which is a bit sad. A bit sad, friends. Okay. We got you. Let's put Judith in. And then I'm going to do Blood Artist. And then I think we need to do this Annihilating Glare. We'll sacrifice an artifact. Oop, that treasure. They make another treasure. They're probably going to cast our Junji, you know? Tybalt's going to give them so much advantage. Yeah. This is a rough matchup for sure. We don't have a lot of utility that Prosper does with, like, value. Marionette Master might just be the way they win. Because they sacrifice that. That's going to be 8 damage that they can throw at any target. Will probably be my face. We don't have a sack outlet either. And we can't attack with Judith. Okay. A little rough. Just a little rough, you know? Lightning Bolt to the face. Alright. Yeah, we're dead. They just have to bop us in the head with our own command, or our own friend. Yeah, we got nothing. So pass. And turn, and they can just boop us in the face. The old boops. They're dragging it out too. They don't want to just end it for us. End us. Yeah, it's rough not having a sack outlet. I think that would really, really bring this deck together. Is having more sack outlets. There's some relatively cheap ones in Arena too. Like Yeheni. I don't know if Arena still has that as a rare, but let's check to see what our sack outlets are, just as a little refresher. Do we have any sack outlets? I mean, we technically have, like, Deadly Dispute. but I'm not seeing... Like, I'm seeing a lot of drain effects, but I don't see a lot of, like, creature sack outlets. And maybe it wants us just to blow up our own board. Yeah, Yahenni would have been a good addition. What's this Blade Juggler? Yeah, there's just, like, a lot of really high-cost things that aren't my favorite. But, like, why don't we have a Braid? A Braid would be great. Artifact removal. Stuff like that, you know? So, let's jump back in, see what else we can do here, and hopefully win a game. Let's go! Oh, Myrel. Oof! This is gonna be rough, friends. I don't even think they included a board wipe. I don't remember. I know we just looked, but... yeah, it's not gonna be great. Because Myrel is a very fast deck. Or at least the way that I made them. It's like very token go wide bonk face. And if you don't have a board wipe, it's kind of tough to do anything. Okay. That's cool. Bloop. That's a rock. And I love Wayfarer's Bauble in Commander, but in Brawl sometimes it just feels way too slow, especially if your deck has a lot of like low mana curve. Seems good. Ooh, Gravelighter. This helped a lot. Sweet. Okay. Whew. That stalled a little bit of shenanigans for us, but not a lot. I think the play next is probably putting in Judith and then trying to use the Wayfarer's Bauble to ramp a little bit more. I am worried though that for our removal pieces that we're not gonna be able to deal with Myrel at all. But let's see what we can top deck here. Yeah. Okay, so you want this untapped land. We're gonna get Judith in. And then again, ramping here, because we can't do this on their end step because Myrel keeps us from being able to activate that ability. So that's why I'm doing it now. Okay. If you don't know, it's during your turn, so our opponent's turn, we can't cast spells, activate abilities, artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. So again, can't really do things on their end step to kind of hold up mana to be like, what are we doing? Spooky. Spooky, spooky. Okay, so that's gonna be a problem. Oh, so many problems. Alright. Dear Lord. Okay. Again, it'd be so much easier if we had sack outlets, you know? So I'm going to swing with this friend. They're probably just going to take it. Okay. So now we have Morbid for this tragic slip. I think we only have one damage we can throw around. Cool. Let's go for this. Actually, you know what I should have done? Was throw it at the Valiant Veteran instead of the face, because we actually had two creatures that were gonna die. Right? Oh, it's other creatures, like, or that you control. So, never mind. I retract my previous statement. It had to be our own creature. Thalia is good. They're still very far ahead with the advantage here, because I can't exactly block with my commander because they're a 2/2. If they were a 2/3, that would make life a little easier, but we're going to take a serious hit. Okay. Rough. Blood Artist is a little late. This is a good body. They probably would have like the swords. Comes in tapped. So I think I'm just dead. I think death has arrived. Icon of Ancestry. Yeah, so it's gonna be boosting. It's gonna be Soldier. Yeah. Ooh, rough. But yeah, so it's gonna be 6 that gets 9. Okay. Oh no, everything gets through. We'll still try to block, but rough, friends, rough. Whew. GG's. We'll see. Third time's the charm, question mark? Rakdos. Hey, Rakdos v Rakdos. Look at this. Doo doo doo. Yeah, I think we can keep this. I'm not a fan of this Omni creature because I hate the fact that it's 7 cost and it has to deal damage, so it doesn't even synergize with like the -4 stuff, but kind of get stuck with what you get stuck with. There's a lot of better board wipes, so like I see what the deck wants to do, but I just really think there's better means of interaction that could have gone into this deck, specifically better sack outlets, because there's some really good sack outlets like Viscera Seer again that I'm pretty sure is like a common or uncommon, so it should be cheap wildcard wise. Like, actually, is Viscera Seer in Arena? Maybe I'm getting my commander brain mixed up here, but at least like Yahini is really good. There's like Village Rites, Vampiric Rites, like other things that let you draw cards, and even if you did have to pay like 2 mana into it, it's just a better way to go, you know? Actually, yeah, now that I think about the Seer might not be in Arena. Woe Strider's another favorite sack outlet of mine. I like instant speed free ones. Unfortunately, right now we don't have a lot of creatures for, you know, triggering Judith here. We'll go ahead and bonk. Sick. We got some removal. That always makes me happy. Okay. Human, Phyrexian. So their Rakdos is gonna trigger for sure. Oh no! To the command zone. Bloop. Bloop. Okay. Oh, I love burn down the house. That's a fun one. That's sack fodder too. We'll deal with that. That's gonna give them life gain, and we don't want that because we are trying to make them lose life. Boop, boop, boop. Alright. Ooh, that's quite good. Okay. Dear Lord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's see if this works. Aha. Deal another damage. So read this. Enters the battlefield, destroy all other creatures that were dealt damage this turn. Okay. Whew. This is gonna be tricky. They put in that black market, it's gonna drain them quite a bit. They can use, yeah, there's Rakdos. Dark Ritual for, are they playing black market? Ooh, you risk taker. Love it. Okay. Put you in. And then we get Judith in. Is that going to be worth it? Because we go 2. They have to block there. So here's what I'm thinking, right? So they get boosted. That's going to be a 5. They have to block with Rakdos, right? To live. And then 4 gets through. I don't know if it's risky, but we're gonna do this. Then we go to combat. Yep, so they block there. Then we throw damage here. Okay. Hopefully that was the right play to make. Then we can get Midnight Reaper in. Because if they do the invoke, I'm going to lose Judith. They'll get exiled. Then we still have our little demon friends. Okay, the lifelink is quite good. Lifelink is quite good. So I think we still can do this, right? So we attack here, attack here. They're still going to gain 7. We do 2 to here. Then we do Languish. They're tapped out. Oh, whoa. Bold. Then we deal 1 here and 1 here. Woo! Dear Neptune, that was stressful. Alright, GG's opponent. Alright friends, here are some upgrades that I had where I was thinking, you know, if you're willing to throw down a little bit for some wild cards, potentially with rare cards, there's some options. Definitely you'll want to put in more board wipes, which unfortunately have more, you know, rare cards that are going to be eating into your wallet here. And I hope from what you saw gameplay wise that you have a little bit of an idea of what the archetype should maybe look like for this deck and what to expect when you're playing out in the queue and what kind of commanders you might go up against. So one thing that I kind of put aside here were some ideas for cuts. One specifically, the Brimstone Volley. 3 damage is okay. There's some better 2 instant speed things that will guarantee that you do the 3 damage. Yes, you can have the potential to deal 5 here if a creature died this turn, but if we don't have those sack outlets, that's going to be harder to do. And I think there's just better removal spells in black anyways that would just make more sense to run over this card. We also have things like the Blade Juggler, which is 5 CMC, and that feels way too expensive for me. Even though we could cast them for the spectacle cost, just what they do doesn't really feel worth it to me, because I think there's better ways to draw cards, there's better sack outlets, sack fodder, all those things, to not have to do all these extra steps to get this to not cost 5. Same with Boneyard Aberration. When I did have this, I just kind of felt bad because it's 5 CMC, and that's just a lot of mana to then put a creature that you have to pay more mana to just be able to put onto the battlefield. So wasn't my favorite. The other card too is Overwhelming Remorse. Yes, it does exile, but I think we have better removal effects. Either we could add in more things that are like flesh bag effects. So when this creature enters, opponent sacrifices a creature. Baleful Mastery I also think is a better removal spell because you can pay 2 potentially instead of the 4 that it costs. That is a rare card, so if you don't want to use that, then you could probably keep this here. Just not my favorite removal spell, to be honest. Then we also have Puglist. I have no idea how to say that. It's a bit costly. You can blitz it in, and the fact that it self-sacrifices is okay, but I think we could do better with other types of things that make sack fodder or effects that can recur themselves. We also have Phyrex and Gargantua. Again, it's a lot of mana for kind of mediocre payoff in my opinion. Yes, you are drawing 2 cards, but it's just not that great. At least I think in Brawl, maybe in a limited format, yeah. And then Death Rattle Ani, again, not a card that I like because there's a lot of steps you have to take in order for this to work. Hainer Backwalker is a lot of mana for kind of okay payoff, and I think there's just better ways that we can get like sack fodder and other things like that. So moving on to the cards that I think are going to be like good upgrades, I think if you're willing to put down some of the wild cards, Woe Strider, if you have like any desire to keep playing this format, you're not going to be wasting your wild cards unlocking Woe Strider, Yahenni, or Yawgmoth, and especially with Yawgmoth. Yawgmoth has some really powerful effects, specifically with sack fodder things, and what we want to do in this, deck overall is, sacrifice our creatures, and on top of that, we get to draw cards with this buddy. And there are some infinite combos with this too, if that interests you at all, but overall, I just think that if you're wanting to be careful with how many wild cards you're spending, these 3 cards are typically worth it if you are going to be trying to play more with, like, you know, swampy pips, like different types of commanders that are swampy commanders. Other things that we can do if you don't want to use those wild cards is Dockside Chef is a uncommon. You do have to pay 2 mana, but you're still drawing a card, and you could potentially sacrifice a treasure instead of a creature if you don't want to sacrifice a creature. Vampiric Rites, again, you're paying 2, but you're gaining life and you're drawing a card. Village Rites is fun as well because even though it's a one-time sack outlet, we're still drawing cards, and drawing cards is huge. And I think Lamphead of Death's Vigil, another card, you're only paying 1, but you do get to sacrifice a creature. And then we have Skullport Merchant, who makes treasure, pay 2, and you can draw a card if you sacrifice another creature or treasure. So those can be like more of your budget-friendly like sack outlets, but I think the fact that you're getting card advantage or gaining life and maybe making your opponent lose life is just going to synergize really well with what your deck wants to do. Budget-friendly removal, which I think is important to have at instant speed. Cut down is really good, especially if you have things like the Lilia, you know, Discover deck that you're going up against, being able to get rid of that early. Bitter Triumph is super good because you can hit either a creature or a planeswalker. Heartless Act can be really good too if a creature doesn't have a counter on them. We have a Braid, which I had mentioned before, to do some sort of artifact removal. And we have other things here too, like this can destroy an artifact and then later become, you know, sack fodder for Judith, so that's not terrible. And then we have Plundering Barbarian, which could either help you ramp or let you blow up an artifact, and then can also be sack fodder. Ravenous Chupacabra is one of my favorite cards because it's really fun to recur, get it out of the graveyard, hit more things, all those shenanigans. So these are just some kind of what I would consider more budget-friendly removal pieces that are kind of better than what the pre-con offers for you. And again, for board wipes, you're gonna have to burn some wild cards for these buddies, but they're just really important. Blood on the Snow is one of my favorite because if you're using snowlands, wipe the board, you can potentially get a creature back out of your graveyard. And Invasion of Fior is fun. We also have Meathook Massacre, which can just win you games, especially in a deck like this. And a card that I would like to shout out because we are playing with squishy creatures, that adding Menace to them, being able to make treasure when they deal combat damage, and if it dies, which again, we want to sacrifice our creatures, we can draw a card. So I'm a fan of those kind of things. Yeah, that was my view of the deck overall. If you are going to try to make these upgrades or implement changes, these are just kind of like an overview of what I felt like was missing. These are just some suggestions. They're not, you know, law. I'm saying you have to make these upgrades or these changes because there are some much better cards that you can try to add as well. So for those of you who are more senior with this format watching, asking why I'm not adding or suggesting other cards, it's because I was trying to keep things relatively budget friendly on the wild cards, but feel free to also make suggestions in the comments if you have any recommendations, especially for newer players who are trying to break into the format. If you have any recommendations, again, feel free to put those down. And I hope this video was helpful for those of you who are looking to get into Brawl. So hope you all have a lovely rest of your day and have a good one. Bye.